This video is sponsored by Alpha Draft, whose pious libations of fat stacks, bags of mad money, sick Skrilla enable this, seemingly human demigod to descend from the heavens to bestow words of wisdom which trickle into your ears like warm, succulent honey, transforming the previously dead, useless matter that inhabited that cranium into a kind of transcendent, shimmering spiritual gold, which will then cause your spirit to soar amongst the clouds of imagination. Thanks for them doing that. We will now mention that they offer fantasy esports services such as League of Legends, Dota 2, CSGO, Smite, and presumably they'll have the World Championship for League of Legends, so make your teams there, pick out the players you think will do well. Will Flash Wolves do well? Oh, will it actually be Fnatic who does really well in their group? What about the group of death? Can TSM make it? Which players are a good pick? Can Bjergsen get his picks in? I don't know. If you want to do that, description box below for Alpha Draft. Thanks for all of that shit that I just said there. It was really long. So the topic that's recently been on everyone's lips is caster criticism, and this has come to light over a tweet that Jatt made, which has then sparked a debate over whether casters should criticize. Are they going too far? Should pro players be criticized in that sense? Pro players then mutated this and performed their own little bit of alchemy, transmuted that into a discussion about whether solo queue is indicative of how good you are, which was vaguely related to your initial tweet, but not entirely. So we've got some stuff to unpack here. Now, first and foremost, there's the issue of, actually, when you even say the term caster, which is actually the term that everyone tends to use now for people who do this job, what's funny is I personally, just like I'm not really that big a fan of the term esports, I prefer competitive gaming. I actually don't particularly like the word caster that much. I prefer the term commentator because I think it's a better description. But in this particular case, I think there's some merit to it, because in this particular instance, what you're getting with casters is people who, much like the term caster in terms of like casting a spell, what they say, the power of their words really does carry over more than just describing what's happening. It has an impact on people, how they perceive the game, and thus people put and assign a lot of weight and value to what these casters are saying, and hence why we've gotten to this world where players are very defensive and don't want casters to say certain things or criticize them in a certain way, because they themselves are worried not about what the person's saying directly, but the knock-on effect. What will the community think of this player? What will they think of this in this aspect? And they're trying to then battle in their own kind of almost magical marketing realm to offset that, or to give people a different perspective. And that's what I think a lot of this has stemmed from. So first and foremost, let's just address the topic generally. Should casters criticize players? Yes. I don't think it's even debatable at this point. That's actually part of their job, because it's not that they should criticize, as in their job literally says, right, wake up in the morning, brush teeth, go to studio, wreck that shit at top laner, get right in the ass of that support player who's really been letting the team down. No, the point is criticism is part of the job. It's part of the spectrum of how you commentate and analyze and break down the game and then articulate it to the fans. So just as you would praise a player who historically did something wonderful, who in the raw moment of a particular play did something very special, but who might not be that great a player, just as you praise that, and within the context of who he is as a player, like, wow, we don't usually expect that kind of great play from someone like him, but he really stepped up to the plate, delivered a top-notch play there, outplayed a player normally we think of as better as position, to set up the context of that, to not just make it that it's a good play, but why it's a good play in context of who he is. We then have to also, on the other side of the coin, the other end of the spectrum, be able to criticize people. Okay, this is a very good player, historically one of the best at this sort of champion, but he's had a really off game here, and even though for another top laner, that might be an okay game, in this particular scenario, we can see that his team usually expects more from him, they focus him more, they give him more gold, and normally in that sort of situation, he'd outplay the enemy there, he'd have had a bigger impact, and so even if it looked like he had an okay game, in the context of him in his career and where he's at, actually this was a poor game, and we have to relatively give criticism here and set it up there, because as you can see, what I'm doing at all points as I'm doing my kind of mini casting impression there is it's all about context. That's what's really important here. And so just as I said in my now famed video, which I'll link there, about if everyone is good then no one is good, if you make it so that everyone gets praise and no one ever gets properly criticized, and no one even gets criticized as in if they're a good player and they just have an okay play, they don't get criticized in the context of who they are, then there won't be real context in the game. People won't fully understand what inferior players? What poor players? There'll just be this weird, grey, amalgamous, nebulous mess of everyone's doing well to decent to good to they just need to step it up a little bit, and all those sort of bullshit euphemisms that we put in place of he played very poorly there, his performance has to be better in the next game, so he's going to cost his team this series and this match, and we expect more from him. These aren't unreasonable ways of describing it. I mean, no one's arguing that people like these casters should be like, well, he's fucking shit, isn't he? Get him the fuck out the game now. I could do that in bronze. Like, no one's arguing for that style of casting, are they, or commentating? So we're talking about reasonable criticism, which is where this debate starts. So let's start with where it was. What happened was, Jatt made this comment, just a tweet, that said, Huni, 375 LP Masters league points in Masters in 115 games. Balls, so Huni's the top laner of Fnatic. Balls, top laner of Cloud9. Diamond 2, 84 league points in 192 games. And then he says this line. There's more to life than solo queue, but this is a worrying trend for C9. So let's just set up the context there and explain what Jatt's saying. So he's taken a really good reference point here, which is that Balls is doing very poorly in Korean solo queue. He's in Diamond. He hasn't got very many league points. He's played almost 200 games. Huni, considered the best top laner within the Western region. He's actually a Korean, but he's playing for a Western team, Fnatic. So, similar sense, we group the Western players together. Good reference point here of the best you can be. He's 375 league points in Masters, higher division, and he's played half as many games. So the obvious trend here is not only is Balls doing poorly, but here's a reference point of someone doing very well. So you can see the contrast of how poorly he's doing. They're both in the same group, remember, at Worlds, so they're going to potentially be playing each other. And he even says within his comment, it's not like, here's the thing, it's a tweet, and tweets can only be 140 characters. So in general, in a tweet, you can't put all the context in anywhere. I've never understood people who are like, well, that doesn't tell the whole story. Of course not. I can't put a fucking novel with like, oh, I can't do a David Foster Wallace fucking essay with like a million annotations and extra appendix at the bottom telling the whole story and an anecdote by the time I went to some fair somewhere. It's a fucking tweet with 140 characters in. But anyway, even within his tweet, he puts in reasonable context that tells you all you need to know. He says at the beginning, before he says anything, he puts the facts. You can't argue with the facts, by the way. He puts the facts. Then he says, there's more to life than solo queue. So he's immediately saying, this isn't the be-all and end-all. This statement isn't meant to mean that Balls can never play as well as Huni, that it's over for Balls, that Huni's a million times better, Huni's twice as better, that Balls is done, Huni's better, Fnatic's going to go through all these weird implications you could make, and someone could make from this tweet. He even says, before he makes his point, there's more to life than solo queue. So he's saying that's not everything. But by saying there's more to life than solo queue, he's then saying, but within this little realm of solo queue, here's a reference point. Now, what can we say from that? He doesn't even say, therefore, Balls is a shit top laner in his group, probably won't do very well, and someone like Huni will probably smash him, and there's a massive difference. Which actually, for someone like me, I think that's a perfectly fine tweet to make. Okay, he doesn't say that though. He just says, but this is a worrying trend for C9. He doesn't even say it's going to be bad. He just says it's a worrying trend. Now, who reasonably could argue either the facts that he stated, just the facts, then the conclusion he's drawn is, solo queue isn't everything, but this is a bit worrying for Cloud9, right? That's about as fucking mild-mannered as you could get to make this point. I wouldn't make that point that way. I mean, I'm not a Riot caster, obviously. But that's not in any way harsh criticism, unreasonable way of characterising it, or picking on anyone. He's just making a fucking point, isn't he? And in a weird way, if you think about it, everyone's only taken this to be so negative against Balls. Well, actually, what he's also doing there is, Balls is a player whose team has been able to qualify for Worlds. In a way, by showing us how poorly Balls is doing in contrast, he's actually also showing us how phenomenally someone like Huni's doing, who is one of the best in the West, and that there's a difference even between #1 EU top laner and someone from NA who just qualified, but in the 3rd spot. Look at what a chasm is. That's worth knowing, right? That's pretty interesting in its own way. There's a contrast and there's a wide spectrum there. They're not all just around the same level. So actually, totally reasonable. So that's not even criticism to me. That's not even getting into the topic of criticism. Now, the problem arises, totally fine statement, when Sneaky comes along. Because Sneaky comes along and he says to Jatt, why are you picking on Balls? I'm pretty sure there's more than just him in Diamond 2. Then he follows up with a tweet saying, Bjergsen, Turtle, Afro, Xmithy. Now, what's genius about this tweet? By the way, I love Sneaky. I think he's got a great sense of humour. I think in general he's got reasonable opinions on stuff. But this is so poorly articulated that I'd love to sit him down and actually grill him over this. Because what does that mean? What does that first statement mean? Why are you picking on Balls? As in, he's like singling Balls out, who presumably doesn't deserve this treatment. And he's like going in on him in this sense. And what's his reason for why it's picking on him? Because there's others who are in Diamond 2. So the fact that there are other people in Diamond 2 means what? That when you do 140 character tweets, do you have to include all of them, as you just did? So, okay, Sneaky, if we shouldn't be picking up ball, why are you mentioning other people? Why are you mentioning Bjergsen, Turtle, Afroworks, me? Is there no point to be made here? If there's no point to be made here, just say, well, solo queue doesn't mean anything, chat. The fact he's in Diamond won't affect how he plays in Worlds. He doesn't say that, though. He says, but other people are also in Diamond. So are you agreeing that his original statement was correct? Because you haven't let us on yet. You haven't actually told us. If you aren't, then this is an irrelevant point to make. If you do agree with it, because the fact is, he's right then, isn't he, about balls? Now, by your logic, he should probably make another tweet like, oh, and here's where Afromu is, and compared to, I don't know, Lost Boy, and here's where Xmithy is. I mean, it doesn't really matter in terms of Xmithy, but here's Xmithy compared to, I don't know, Amazing. Here's where they are. Okay, he could do that, but that would just be this for the sake of what? Completedness, wholeness, just for the sake of saying everything. Again, he's not obliged to. This is just his opinion, and he's using one example. When you make one example, you're not obliged to make every other possible example within that set that has a similar logic applied. That's actually would be quite redundant at that point. He's made the point about balls. Now, he's also making the point, Sneaky. Remember, at the end of the comment, this is a worrying trend for C9. They don't play for C9. It's pretty irrelevant, isn't it, how Bjergsen's doing when he's making a point about Huni for Fnatic in the group with C9, and Balls plays for C9, and the relation between the two and how far apart they are in practice. It's pretty irrelevant how Bjergsen's doing in the group of death with, you know, all those sick teams there, isn't it? I mean, what would the relevance be in that particular sense, right? Except you're drawing some implication, presumably, which is that Ball's been doing really poorly, and so now maybe the knock-on is he won't do very well at Worlds. Okay, let's have that discussion then. But to have that discussion, Sneaky, my love, you have to start criticising people. You have to start naming names like you just did here. You're engaging in the same behaviour. In a way, you didn't say it directly, but the implication was there. And the implication, my friend, that's everything, right? That's what everyone's reacting to. So, yeah, why would he pick on him? Well, he's not. He's making a great example, and he's doing it for the sake of the context of his own comment. You don't take a comment out of context and then just destroy it completely. There's also the factor, Sneaky, my dear, that Bjergsen, Wild Turtle, Afromu, Xmithy, Balls. One of these names is not like the others. Oh, it's Balls. Balls? Well, I'll put it the other way. Let's go the other way. Why am I going to pick on Balls? So, Bjergsen was a phenomenal player in 2015, one of the best in his whole region, one of the best in his role in the West, phenomenal player, MVP level caliber. Wild Turtle had a lot of problems and has been duly criticised about as much as any player can be within the West. I don't think anyone can say he isn't singled out in criticism. Afromu has been duly criticised for playoff performance problems in the past, but in general is praised as one of the best Western supports. Xmithy, admittedly, also gets a lot of criticism, but actually he's done all right this season and his team won the league. Now, why is Balls singled out compared to these ones? Because unlike all those names there, Balls was fucking shit for 2015. He was shit in all of 2015. He was shit at IEM. He was terrible in the spring split, even though they fucking came second there. He had huge problems in the summer split, where anyone else not called Balls and with his past history in the team would have just been cut and replaced, even with someone gambling on someone's solo queue. He was doing that badly, and when Meteos High Hair left the team, and then Meteos left the team, was falling apart to such a degree, he was a massive liability for his team. Hence, why he'd be in the back of people's minds now for someone like Jatt or another caster to use this as a reference point, because he's someone where this is indicative of other problems he's had already, a track record of problems. So actually, he is the exact example to pick, which is what Jatt essentially in a way implies, which is that he later on says, not trying to pick on anyone, too sneaky this is, I feel like he's currently he's an outlier. And then he says, also, Bjergsen, Turtle, Afromu and Xmithy have not been demoted from D1 to D2 on multiple occasions. So he goes again with the solo queue environment. That's where he's making the argument from. But you could easily just make the argument just about how they've played over the year and the fact that those players shouldn't be grouped with him, even if they happen to be at the same level diamond on fucking Korean solo queue. So it gets into that, which really goes into the issue of pros don't like it when you criticise their friends. So they defend their friends. Okay, that's fine. Pros can do that if they want. Sneaky can make these comments. His comments are just nonsense, as you've just seen there. They have no substance to them. They don't even have a clear point as to what he's making. It's all over the place, and it's bringing stuff in, and like, yeah, but what about, look, oh, look over there, bird. Oh, yeah, there we go. I've taken balls out under my jacket here. You're safe from Jatt. It's okay. We're going to get you over the border. Like, what? He can't hurt you anymore when you're in Hungary. I mean, what even was his point? What was it really the point he was boiling down to? He never got to one. It wasn't solo queue's not indicative. It wasn't Balls hasn't played badly. It wasn't Balls doesn't deserve criticism because then he brings up other people he thinks are like equally deserving. Or does he think you should criticize everyone if you criticize one person? It's all over the place. So Sneaky's points are essentially just saying like, hey, Balls is a mate of mine and here's me standing up for him. Yeah, he's not that bad. I mean, I know I am an Elo Hell since with him and all that, but I mean, I remember when he used to get the top tower and get a couple of kills on Rumble. Oh, Rumble. Now they don't even ban that shit versus us. I wonder why that is. So the problem is, Sneaky's absolutely fine to make these comments. He can do what he wants. You don't even have to make, every comment doesn't have to be great, as you might see by my Twitter. But the problem is, Sneaky's comments should be put out there and they shouldn't be very relevant. I mean, they're not relevant to discussion. It hasn't sparked any interesting discussion. They're not at all relevant to what Jatt was talking about. It hasn't made any sort of insightful comment about what Jatt was saying, or given any back and forth, or given any counter example, or argued a point, or the merits of the case. Hasn't done any of that. So in a normal world, he'd make his comment, and just like a random Twitch chat comment, it would scroll off the screen and we'd all forget about it. Now the problem here is that his comments are relevant because he's a pro player. And if you're a pro player in the West, fans will take your comments, blow them up, put such scrutiny on them that they will give way too much value and emphasis to what the pros think. So explain this to me. Why does the fact that Sneaky is a really good AD carry and is wicked on Draven, what does that have to do with the merits of his point here? Why did he suddenly have a great point because of that? He didn't. He had a great point if the merits of his point held up. And if the case that he put forward was solid and it linked into what Jatt was saying and it made some interesting points and it emphasized the weakness of Jatt's argument and then it said, casted it over to another area, like, and then let's bring this in as well. It didn't do any of those things. So the fact that he's wicked at Draven has no impact on this. Now, unfortunately, fans don't think that way. Go, well, if Sneaky said it, then it must be sort of, I guess. I mean, he's like better than Jatt or something. I don't know. Like, what relevance did it have? So it shouldn't be relevant, but unfortunately it is. And we all know that's the world we live in. Now, the problem with this is, then a bunch of other pros just jumped in and also made points that had no relevance whatsoever. Like Soaz, my boy Soaz, I love him. He's fucking magnifique. He jumped in and he said, how does this even matter? Darien and Genjin never played solo queue in their life. Solo queue is completely different than competitive. Now, he has made a decent point there, which is there are some all-time great European players who had a lot of success, who didn't play a lot of solo queue. I mean, I'm not sure I'd pick those examples myself, mate. Use yourself at certain points in time. You did wicked in LCS when you were fucking out partying doing fuck all in solo queue. I don't know why you pick players who fell off super hard and didn't evolve with the last sets of metas whatsoever. That's not the greatest example of pick, is it? But anyway, you've picked him anyhow. Let's move on with that. There is obviously the point that solo queue is completely different to competitive, but remember what Jatt said. There's more to life than solo queue. Then he said it's a worrying trend. It's a trend. He didn't even say this is a fact that means it's over for Balls. He is shit, which is what I would say off different reasons. No, he didn't say it. He just said it's a worrying trend. So like, you're not even really addressing his point there. Again, even pros engage in the sort of behavior people do on Reddit where they come out, they make this crazy thing and they're like, yeah, and another thing. It's like, and they're not even arguing against the person. They've just made up their own version of the person. They're arguing against that. St. Vicious comes along and he says, all right, Jatt, I'm going to draw the line here. Questioning someone's solo queue ranking is pretty stupid. Except it's not, because he's not really questioning it. He's just making the point that when the difference between two of the players in the group at the same position is that massive in solo queue, it's a bit worrying as a trend. Because even if Huni could not try and solo queue and be just as good, I think we all know it's quite unlikely Balls could get to where Huni is now and those sorts of points, or it seems quite unlikely, or seems like he's not capable of it. And since we know from the past history and context of Balls and in C9 this year and NALCS that he's had a lot of issues, it is a trend that adds on to the rest of the history and is worrying. So it's not totally without merit, because he's not only saying it off that point, as he himself said. The problem is with all this is, because pro players are going wild, and whenever pro players go wild, along come their fans, who just take all of their words, a bit like my alpha draft thing at the beginning, just take it all in their brain, and that just becomes facts, and fucking a tweet from Sneaky becomes like fucking Moses coming down from Mount Sinai like, here is the law, and kill all the men who have worshipped the golden calf, TSM Jatt. See what I did there? But anyway, since they go so ham on it like that, of course, fucking Jatt only has to come out with an apology for what was never even anything out of bounds or even harsh criticism. So he comes out with a twit longer. Apparently, Jatt's preferred method of communication. I mean, Jatt, you know, twit longers don't actually make you any money, mate. If you pop that on gold per 10, you can monetize that. Just saying. Maybe you'll get some sick Alpha Draft money. Nah, you work for Riot, my bad. So he makes a tweet longer that says, calling out balls for his solo queue was in bad form. Well, no, that's entirely wrong. You don't even know your own job, apparently. It's not in bad form. You had to pick an example. Unlike Sneaky's case, you didn't have a fucking a massive canvas on which to work. You're only picking one tweet. You made a great reference point that you picked the ultimate one because he's not only, even within the group of people who are at that bad level, he is the outlier. You did a great job of identifying that, and you made a very salient point about the difference between these players and players in the same group. So it's even topical to what's going to happen soon to give context for people who are going to watch the tournament. You did a bang up job there. So don't apologise for that just because some fucking players come out. It's just like the standard Riot thing. The Riot thing is like, we'll have to give it a name. What would we call it? Like the Riot Shuffle or some shit like that, where it's like you take one step forward, it's like one step forward, then 2 steps back, like some shit like that, because they make something, and if the community's like, boo, boo, we don't like that, they're like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that, I'm back here now, I'm actually not even just back where you guys are, I'm way behind you, like, listen, I never thought that was good anyway, it was a mistake on my part, and if you took it to be that way, maybe there was miscommunication going on here, I apologise for my role within this, and does everyone love me again? Let's check the numbers, where the polling, 57, 75%, 80%, and good night, I'll see you all next week on the next episode of The Dilemma. So anyway, it wasn't in bad form whatsoever. It's entirely reasonable, and he didn't even do it in a manner that was obnoxious or anything. It was quite fair in how he did it. Even within the statement he did, he put reasonable context. He put, back to his statement, he put, I think there's value in data, but not a single data point doesn't paint an accurate or fair picture. Well, first of all, he didn't attempt to paint an accurate or fair picture. He didn't say this means everything. He said Tholica doesn't mean everything, and this is a trend. Now, it is a trend. First of all, it wasn't a data point. It had 2 data points. It had Hooney, and then he had all the context there. Multiple data points. Number of points, who Hooney is, the fact they're in the same group. Here's the number of games they played. All these data points, and plus over 100 games, a decent sample size. And we've shown 2 trends that are going in different directions and are quite far apart. Actually, that's a great data point, Jatt. That's a great example to be not accurate, but reasonable. Well, like a trend. You can see the trajectory of where it's going, can't you? Where it came from, where it's going, where it's probably headed after that. We can probably get a good sense of that, right? That's how fucking statistics work, Jatt. You don't have to have all the data in the world to do statistics. You just have to have a certain amount, a reasonable sample size. Then you model that data to tell you things. Now, it doesn't tell you a fact. It tells you something that you interpret. You take the data as, you know, if you were some sort of an analyst or a caster, or like you are, and you have the skill set to do this, you interpret it as you did in your tweet, which is why it's entirely reasonable. Then he puts this, I've reached out to C9 and apologised. For what? What have you apologised for? Making an absolutely perfectly reasonable point that's entirely justified, actually, and it's quite important, that sort of context, to give fans and Westerners, so they don't have unrealistic expectations, about the difference between 2 players and the fact that one's performed quite poorly in solo queue. Okay, great. Well, I don't know why you're apologising for that. Oh, but I apologise for making a really great point. Why? Because someone didn't like it? Make it anyway, though. Nah, but I want everyone to like everything I say. Well, that's actually not possible. Then I'll just have to say nothing then. And we're just going to apologise for everything that people don't like now. I mean, if I come out and say fucking Lulex is a shit jungler, I'm sure he'd be like, that hurts my feelings. I don't think I'm actually shit. I'd be like, oh, sorry, Lulex. Yeah, I was out of bounds there. I mean, I was calling you a shit jungler because, like, you know, I live in a world where, like, Cacao and, you know, those sort of clear love, those guys live. But, I guess if it hurts your feelings, then change reality then. Fuck language, right? Just let's just destroy the very basics of communication so that your feelings aren't hurt by a fact getting into your brain. It's interpretation, but it may as well be a fact at this point. He presented. So he then says, I apologise, and I wish them the best as they prepare for World. I mean, that part right there, is that... It's like, these guys must... I don't know if they've ever actually had media training, but fuck me. This is like political shit, like... And I wish him the best going forwards in what I hope will be a long and prosperous career, with good health and salutations. Peace to all men. Like, what? Who cares? Oh, I wished him the best. So if you can wish him ill, mate. It won't change how Worlds goes. It won't make you more biased in any sense. And yeah, as they prepare for Worlds. Well, we just seen, are they even prepared for Worlds to get fucking wrecked in solo queue? Okay, top notch, mate. Now, the big problem with all this in general is, yes, he was entirely justified in making this criticism. As I broke down there, he was very reasonable. He did it. He did everything by the book of correct. I don't think there's any position to criticise him for his criticism. It's funny how that works, isn't it? I'm a pro player. I don't like criticism. Oh, okay, then you should probably not criticise anyone. Fuck that. I'll criticise you for criticising, and you're criticising wrong. Here is my criticism of your criticism. Haha. Rules don't apply to me. You are toxic. I am not. Fucking solo queue people. They'd just be wasted on everyone. So he did it totally right there. He shouldn't have taken back his comment. He was totally justified. In fact, he's fucking ceding bullshit ideological ground to players that they have no right being on. I mean, send those players my way, mate. Because I come out with a fucking baseball bat and I'm swinging for the fences. I don't even know what that means. It means something though, doesn't it? It sounded edgy and provocative. So, I mean, it's true though. If they send volleys my way, I'll bash that shit like a racquetball. So, not only should you not have taken it back, there should be more criticism from people like Jatt and people in his position who are very knowledgeable and could give us interesting context. And when players call you out on it, either don't say anything because what they say is not fucking relevant, or stand on your shit. Do you know what you're talking about? Do you analyse the game? Do you follow it? Do you know that this is correct? Apparently at the end you're implying you don't know it's correct, even though it was. If so, stand up for your own fucking opinion. Who cares if some guy who's the jungler for God knows who agrees or not? That's irrelevant to who you are and your role in the community. Your role in the community is more important than his bruised ego. So stand on your shit, son. There's also the fact that, let's be real about this. Whatever Jatt said, whatever anyone said, Balls has been fucking terrible for 2015. He's a huge problem in his team. He's put so much pressure on Incarnation and Sneaky this year. Sneaky was already kind of like a god. Okay, he's done a great job. Half the fuck... Think how harsh people had no problem shitting into Incarnation's open mouth. Like, please, I'm just getting used to the game. I'm just a baby bird. They were like, C9 used to be better without you, you fuck. That's the sound apparently of someone shitting in someone's mouth. I don't know. So, him playing so terribly has also put more pressure on Incarnation. And everyone's going to be going ham on Incarnation for the first 2/3 of the split. I think it's entirely reasonable that Balls gets this criticism. His play has warranted it. That is entirely the world we live in. He hasn't even been good on some of his own champions, for fuck's sake, that he set a standard on in terms of like Western Rumbles, etc. So, Jatt didn't even need to go in on this solo queue shit now. He could have just done this in the same sense, but said, okay, maybe I shouldn't have said solo queue. But in actual games, he'd done this and given it and backed it up that way. He didn't do that either. I'd rather we had more criticism from this real sense in actual LCS games, around LCS, and from experts. Like, it's not enough for me, who doesn't even know that much about the game, to be the one who has to do it. It's not enough for Monty every now and then to dip his toe in and have to give someone a burn. And everyone be like, fuck you, you're just mad that you're not the coach of TSM, or whatever bullshit they say nowadays. We need more people doing it. I want to know what does Freak think of Lemonation's issues that he's had over this split. When he used to be in a bot lane that was extremely good in the past. Now the bot lane's had its issues. Lemonation's had its issues in terms of certain picks. He's having a lot of influence. I'd love to know what Freak thinks of that. I'd love to know what any of these LCS casters think. But because they're being limited, not only by Riot, but now by the fucking community who's like policing itself into oblivion, into this grey, withering mass that never gets to say anything of interest. Now we're denying ourselves the voices. There's a great saying, okay, that Christopher Hitchens, the great journalist, had, which was about the idea of censorship. And the point he made, and this is the perfect way to make this point about censorship, is that the worst thing about censorship is not that it blocks people's voices being spoken who are making a really important point. That's like a side point. The worst thing about censorship, and the reason no one should want it, is that it denies you, the person who wouldn't agree with what's being said, the chance to hear that information and then to go, actually, I don't agree with that and that's not the case. You're denied even the chance to encounter that information and then realise that you don't agree with it and that you're not interested in it anyway, or that it didn't have a good point. Your freedom to hear it and experience it that way is taken away. And it's the same sense here. Even if you're the biggest Sneaky fanboy in the world and you love Balls and you love C9, by not having this criticism, you will live in an unrealistic world where you won't get this expert insight and you won't get proper analysis of the game. And you won't even get a chance to go, I disagree with that, and because of this, and you had a harder time this season because of the jungle changes, and then the top lane meta really passed. You can't even make those points because there's no grounds to, because everyone's just like, yeah, they're all good. Everyone's good. No one give an opinion. They're all good, and I apologise if anyone took that to even mean that I had an opinion, or an opinion could exist. I've reached out to them on the matter and offered them my firstborn child to work as chattel on their farm. Like, whatever. I mean, it's just ridiculous, isn't it? So yeah, casters definitely should be allowed to criticise. What Jatt said wasn't even vaguely wrong. It was absolutely bang on the money. I wish they'd do it more. I wish he wouldn't retract his statement. I wish he'd just stand on his own shit when it's justified. And if he does, other people in the community will stand with you. Other people who are experts will say, no, this is reasonable what you're doing. And these players, okay, we love you. Love you. Keep fucking banging away on them keys, lads. But shut the fuck up about this, because you know what the fuck you're talking about. So people will stand by you. You've got a banter squad, Jatt. Now fucking man up.